he's noticed a few places silver and gold are placed in magazines and TV ads. And actually recently even a Charmin toilet tissue ad that placed stacks of Kennedy $half on competing tissue. And there's after the tissue was wet and then pulled until it came apart. He never sees Kennedy halves used in retail anymore. And they have not been minted in over 35 years. Was this intentional or what? Can you answer that part, Bob?
I don't know. They are totally clad?
What was that, Bob?
Are they totally clad?
Well, he was just talking about how, you don't see them anymore. You don't see the Kennedy.
Well, that's why I'm asking, did they have any silver in them?
He doesn't specifically say.
No, but do you know if they had any?
What, Kennedy have? Yes. Uh-huh.
Well, that's why they would disappear. And I think a lot of people collect them. And I'll tell you why. And this is introspective. And I have a big take on this. I'll tell you why. I knew the family. I never knew Jack. Nor Joe, who got killed when I was a little boy in the war. I met Teddy. I knew him as a teenager. I knew his father and his mother and his sisters extremely well. So I have a personal interest. I grew up in Boston, went to university there. And so what has happened here is two things. If you get silver in the coin, it's understandable that people would collect them because of the silver. But more than that, what has grown up around the image of Jack Kennedy is a man who listened to his father and took the Illuminati on head on. You read his speeches. It's all there. And today we have people of all political persuasions who realize that this man sacrificed his life for our country. He was murdered by these people. Horrible. And people have to look at it in that way. I have never been a Democrat voter in my life. I've always been very conservative, even as a little boy. And I feel that as time wears on and people read the history of what he has done in the past, in his tenure in office as president, they're going to realize what a giant this guy was. Yeah, he had his drawbacks. He was immoral and did things he shouldn't have done. But that's not for us to judge, unless it breaks our laws. It obviously didn't. And, when you're in first place, like he was, you become very attractive. I hate to say this, to both sexes. Not that he ever had anything to do with anything other than women. But women like powerful men. Not all of them, but many of them. And it's sort of a thing where, and he was very good looking, he had to fight them off, so to speak. And so there's two sides to all of us. Maybe even multiple.
Are you
sides.
making excuses for him?
No, he did what nobody else would do. He wanted to get rid of the Fed Reserve, the CIA, and a whole bunch of other things. And he was right.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think he was a great American. And I knew his father very, very well. And he was a greater man than his father. And his father always wanted Joe, who was killed in the war, to be able to fill his shoes, and of course that never happened. And Jack did a more than admirable job. And sure, a lot of the things he did were liberal, but you got to look at the whole thing, the whole man. And I know members of his family who, Teddy Kennedy was a jerk, and his two sisters were splendid. His mother was very nice. When I had heard she had gone into I don't know the nicest way to say a mental hospital. I couldn't figure out why, because I didn't see it, and I spent 2 summers with them. But anyway, what do I know about medical things? And the point here is that what he tried to do, Melody and I, and all of the people in our venue and alternative radio, and the writers, and all you people out there who are striving to get your freedom back from these criminals, he was the forerunner for us. He set the gauge, and we have to surmount it. If we don't, we're going to be dead creatures.
Was the reason his father wanted the other brother, Joe, to take over and everything was because he was more perhaps apt to continue the family legacy as far as wasn't most of their money made in booze?
Well, first of all...
Was that why perhaps one was more willing to accept it than the other?
Well, Joe was the oldest, and he had been trained to do what Jack did. And so he was the natural first one to go forward. Well, that didn't happen. The wealth of the Kennedys and the Fitzsimmons, I think that's their last name, came from the transportation of alcohol from Nova Scotia and in other places in Canada on the coast. Mm-hmm. And they were like wholesalers. They contract for the booze in Canada, and they take it down at night in the boats and bring it ashore in New England, and then it would be transshipped to the mafia, which would then distribute it throughout that region. And I know a lot of that about that. I'm not going to go into because I have talked to people who are involved in it, and they're all since deceased, of course, and because I lived there. So the Fitzgeralds or Fitzsimmons, whichever their name was, and I don't remember because they call him Honey Fitz, so that's my excuse. Anyway, but it was before my time, actually. Joe married Fitz's daughter, and that's how their relationship was built up, and they had a lot of money, and Joe was in the market, and Joe was an operator. I mean, he was a greedy, voracious, nasty person, and I can tell you that firsthand. And so Joe was the natural choice. I don't think Joe Sr. knew where Jack was going to end up. He didn't think about that until 1943 when Joe got killed. And he said, well, we got to get Jack going on this, and so on.
Well, I hear the music.